Hello, folks. Thanks for tuning in. So today we're going to look at basically censorship. We see both the right and the left, Republicans, Democrats, pointing fingers, blaming each other for everything that's wrong with the world when there's blame to go around on both sides. But being missed in all this by a lot of people who want to be stuck in their echo chambers is that the biggest threat to our country and our nation is big tech and the mainstream media. They want to control the narrative. They do control the narrative to a large extent. Just take a look at what some things going on now, especially with the Hunter Biden scandal, Facebook and Twitter censoring and banning people for sharing stories about their Biden laptop, YouTube censoring those that show information as far as clips and videos or pictures and such from the laptop. And some of that stuff doesn't need to be just shared willy-nilly because it is, involving a minor from what we're seeing. But the most telling part, I think, one of the most telling anyway, is the New York Post, which may be the longest running, if not the longest running, is one of the longest running newspapers in this country, still locked out of their Twitter account for reporting on the Biden issue. Ben Greenwall here breaks it down pretty well on his Twitter, so we'll take a look at that. Starts off by quoting a part of a Washington Post article. One of the clearest and most important sentences you'll read, showing how U.S. media really works, from Washington Post op-ed. We must treat the Hunter Biden leaks as if they were a foreign intelligence operation, even if they probably aren't. This is absolutely how mainstream U.S. outlets think. Exactly what is said there by RID, one of those centrist professor outlets used to elevate their unhinged conspiracy theories with a facade of expertise. We have no idea if this conspiracy is true, but we will say it anyway. There is no question, none, that mainstream U.S. news outlets disseminate more unhinged, unproven conspiracy theories and do far more damage with them than QAnon or whichever fringe group they want you to focus on can achieve in 1,000 years. See for yourself. And he has some screenshots here from different things, some articles going back to 2002. I mean, it's way before Trump, before Biden, or Obama and Biden. Just kind of showing you how they control the narrative and to some extent control what actions our government takes. Threats in response to the Iraqis, U.S. has Hussein intensifies quest for A-bomb parts. Another one from 2002, talking about Saddam Hussein, possible ties to Al-Qaeda. And I think most people now agree that there were no weapons of mass destruction. But that was probably a war about oil. Here we have this gentleman from MSNBC, I believe. His name is Jonathan Scheidt. Unlikely but possible that Trump has been Russian intel asset since 1987. Folks, Soviet Union was still around back then. I mean, what kind of ridiculous claim is that? And then, of course, we have Manafort held secret talks with Assange and Ecuadorian embassy, sources say. Of course, we now know that's been debunked as well. And now Greenwall continues. U.S. media outlets outside of right-wing sites were desperate not to report the Hunter emails and to block their reporters from doing so. So they just started printing that it was Russian disinformation, knowing there was no basis for that until they could figure out what to do. And of course, we now know the DNI stated there was no evidence that it was Russian disinformation. FBI stated they had nothing to add to the DNI statement, meaning they found no evidence of it as well. And Greenwall continues here. One of the best reporters, Matt Taibbi, who I think most people would agree is liberal-leaning. He's not a conservative. He just published a great and well-researched article documenting how many lies U.S. media outlets are telling to protect Biden. It's on Substack. I doubt any liberal left outlet would publish it. That's why Taibbi is more popular than ever. You can read the full thing if you would like. Greenwald has actually highlighted some important parts here. Talking about the Hunter Biden expose, suppression is a bigger scandal than the actual story. Unprecedented efforts to squelch information about a New York Post story may prove to be more dangerous corruption than whatever Hunter Biden did with a crooked Ukrainian energy company. And here he makes the statement, this is clearly newsworthy, but the few outlets like the Washington Post that even bothered to report on these tapes only did so to convey their distaste for the source. Press outlets began some time ago to describe such material as misinformation or disinformation, even though items like the Durst catch tapes or the leaked calls between State Department officials Victoria Nuland and Jeffrey Pyatt discussing who should be Ukraine's interim leader after the Euromaidan revolution are neither. Both terms normally require an element of false information. It states here from Fox or the Daily Caller on the right to left-leaning outlets like Consortium or the World Socialist website to writers like me even, we're all now clearly in range of new speech restrictions even if we stick to long ago established factual standards. As has been hinted at by several prominent journalists, controversies erupted within newsrooms across New York and Washington in the last week. Editors have been telling charges that any effort to determine whether or not the Biden laptop material is true or to ask the Biden campaign to confirm or deny the story will either not be allowed or put through heightened fact-checking procedures. On the other hand, if you want to assert without any evidence at all that the New York Post story is Russian interference, you can essentially go straight into print. And here he goes more into the Shokin situation. For all the negative press about Shokin, there's no doubt that there were multiple active cases involving Dlashevsky and Burisma during his short tenure. This was even once admitted by American reporters before it became taboo to describe such cases untethered to words like dormant. So you can see they're frowned upon by the media to report anything negative about Biden right now. Greenwall adds his opinion here, which I completely agree with. Independent journalists like Taibbi and platforms and outlets that won't censor are more rare than ever, especially now when most national journalists are in full-on elect Biden mode at the expense of everything else. And he's saying to support these outlets and these journalists. And he goes on, the only silver lining in all of this is that media outlets are so desperate to help Biden win that they're not even pretending anymore. No pretense. There's great clarity in that. To the NPR public editor note, the CNN panel, and that red quote, add this stunning Christiane Amanpour clip. I'm not going to play this because CNN would probably give me a copyright strike or something, but get a chance, go to Greenwall's Twitter feed, check out this video. And then Greenwall adds, no purported news outlet has worth if it constrains or censors writers and reporters and forces them to advance the partisan preferences of editors or to flatter the ideological presuppositions of their audience. Support independent journalism, only those outlets that are free. And then here's Greenwall again calling out the media. You'll see here's a quote from Ben Collins, who, I can't remember who he works for, I believe it's NBC News. Reason he gives that they're not reporting on the Biden laptop. Reminder for your uncle, the press can't cover Hunter's hard drive because we don't have access to it. This isn't a WikiLeaks thing. One guy has access to it. He wouldn't give it to us. Now he's in quasi-hiding because he got caught in a hotel room with Borat's daughter. The whole Borat thing has been debunked as well. He was tucking his shirt in, by the way. So here's Greenwall. The excuse offered here by this NBC reporter for not covering the Hunter Biden emails is 100% BS. NBC reported 3 or 4 stories with me from the Snowden archive in 2014, even though NBC never had access to the archive. They reported it by seeing the docs I shared with them. And he's got screenshots here with highlights. Documents taken from the National Security Agency by Edward Snowden and obtained by NBC News detail how British cyber spies continued. Yeah, the screenshots here. So you can see they reported without seeing the documents themselves, just taking somebody else's word for it. You can actually check Jack Posobiec from One American News. Check his Twitter feed. He has multiple tweets to different media personalities claiming, "Oh, we haven't seen those, so we can't report on it." Telling them, I've got the information. I will be glad to set up a meeting and meet with you." To my knowledge, and from the last thing I saw from Jack Posobiec, none of them have taken him up on his offer. They don't want to see it because then they would have no excuse for not reporting it. And if you don't follow Jack, I would strongly recommend following him, regardless of whether you lean left, lean right. He reports, he provides receipts, documentation. And of course, leftists on social media continue celebrating the censorship and blatant bias. They still refuse to condemn it, even though it's now coming for them. Conservatives have been warning them for quite a while now. Look, don't think that in the end that they're not going to come for you as well. We take a look here. Jimmy Dore tweeted about this. Even the Young Turks now being censored by Facebook. Jimmy Dore mentioned, what is kind of amazing to me is that a journalist at the Young Turks, Anna Kasparian, who is currently being censored by Facebook, spent today arguing with me in favor of exactly this kind of censorship she is now the victim of. Even that can't wake her out of her pro-censorship stance. And here's from one from the Young Turk stating, Facebook is now blocking our videos for violating community standards that trigger certain keywords. Was it the Marxist, Bolivia, or Biden? And you can see from Jacobin Magazine, we have a new episode of Weekends with Anna Kasparian and Nando Vila, featuring Marxist economist Richard Wolff. We're talking about the Jeffrey Toobin incident, the socialist victory in Bolivia, and whether Bernie can pressure a Biden administration. And of course, you can dive deeper into Twitter and look. Kasparian had something to say about Jimmy Carter out again. It's a whole big thing, but look, I don't support censorship of anybody. And a lot of people, one of the things I hear left-leaning people use as an excuse as to why they support it, yeah, they want to turn around and complain when it's well, they should censor crazy conspiracy theories. They should censor Alex Jones. They should censor QAnon. These things are just conspiracy theories. These people are crazy. Well, if they're that crazy, and some of them are, let them talk. The more you let someone who's far out there with their views talk, the more comfortable they get talking. The more comfortable they get talking, the more of their far out ideas they will reveal. The further far out, if that's the correct way to put it, that they will get. And they'll eventually reveal themselves to be crazy, and people will discredit themselves, and people will stop listening to them because they're only people want to listen to that point where other far out fringe people that agree with them. When you censor them, it puts more attention on them because people are like, wait a minute, why do they not want us to hear what this group or this person has to say? I'm going to go look more into their stuff. You just draw more attention to them. You give them more credence, by especially groups with like QAnon, whose big claim is, oh, this is the stuff they don't want you to see. Well, then you censor them, then you're kind of inadvertently giving credence to them, saying, oh, we told you, see, they don't want you to see this. Let them talk. They'll expose themselves if they're crazy. But anyway, that was a little bit of a rabbit hole, sidetrack there. But so censorship is getting worse and worse. It's more overt. It's more blatant. This is one place I think the left and the right need to come together on and stand up to big tech, look into some sort of, maybe not possibly completely doing away with Section 230, but some changes to that. Because at this point, those protections are for them being a open platform, but at this point, they've pretty much become publishers. So we need to revisit that. But that's pretty much all for now. Thank you for watching the video, and you have a great day.